Currently, there are 7 seats for Modi electors. As the affirming team, I wish to strike this law for it to be abolished for the reasons I will present today. There should be no reason an underqualified Modi politician should have a privilege to a parliamentary seat over a more qualified and more experienced politician due to their race. Every single vote is crucially important, so why should we entrust an underqualified politicians to make important decisions for the advancement of our society and our country? As the first speaker of the affirming team, I would like to introduce our first substantive of unfairness. Second speaker will refute all rebuttal and introduce our next point, and the third speaker will give a reasonable explanation as to why we have won the points of clash. By implementing this moot, we ensure a positive mindset in the community, while also making progressions for the country as a whole, with respect of all races and ethnicities. We all live in this first world country. With that title, boasts equality with every single race. How can we teach our children from a young age and tell us that they should be grateful to live in a country of equality, where everyone has a fair chance, when in reality, with this kind of law, it limits people's freedoms and rights to a job because of their race? Equal rights is something that we've been fighting for many years, and is prevalent in our society as well as in our governing system. I wouldn't go as far as to say that this is a racist law that has been passed, but as the affirming House, we conform to the idea that this is discrimination and an unfair advantage to those who are not of Modi descent. These and everyone, we must ensure that everyone is as qualified as they can in their respective field. I and almost everyone else wants politicians who will accurately portray what we want in our laws and society and how our governments act. So why should someone who may be less qualified be entitled to a seat purely because of their ethnicity? It was once said by Mr. George Smith, QC, said the provision of dedicated seats for any specified group offends the democratic principle of one vote, one value. While allowing this sort of law, we pose the risk of other ethnic groups demanding dedicated seats. If there were 7 seats for Caucasians, 7 seats for Asians, 7 seats for African New Zealanders, and 7 seats for Hispanics, we're already looking at 35 dedicated seats out of 121 parliamentary seats. This is an outstanding number, and I have only listed the primary ethnicities that could have made the same claim. There is simply no excuse for favoritism amongst these races. The divide could create problems within our society in New Zealand, and it could be detrimental. Once again, I'd like to emphasize that we can't raise our children in a government system which is biased towards a specific race. These Modi seats were created so that Modi culture and influence was still prevalent in our society. If we look at minor impacts on the people as a Modi rights and laws which benefit the indigenous people, it is unlikely these seats would be able to make a difference. However, if we look at the big picture, when introducing laws and legislations to unqualified members of the parliament would be paramount of a failing government and country as a whole. I would also like to bring in the idea of tokenism. It is extremely patronizing and tokenistic of our government to dedicate and allocate for a specific ethnic group. What kind of message does this send to our society? Well, I can tell you the message it sends. We don't believe that your ethnic group is able to get even 1 seat, so we've decided to pity on you and give you 7 seats out of sympathy. We support the Modi politicians and party, but we don't support the passive-aggressive and demeaning law. This gives the idea for other politicians and wider public that Modi descent are inclined to handouts, and they do not work as hard as other races due to their ethnicity. How would this voice and the justful actions of these seats be taken seriously by other politicians and the governing parties, as I presented earlier? As I believe most politicians believe that they don't believe or deserve these seats, and they do not work as hard to be able to have these seats as other politicians. This would cause many problems within the government itself, and there would be a flow-on effect on the people of New Zealand. During 1867, this legislation was passed. With this came many damaging effects, such as a large divide in the community. Although this problem does not run rampant as it did in the past, events show, and we should learn from history, that this could continue if this legislation is not taken out of our governing system. Allowing 7 dedicated seats for the Māori ethnicity group is unfair and disadvantageous to other races. This would be demeaning to the Māori people, and finally would cause a split in the community which we hold so dear. There is an overwhelming amount of evidence that proves that this is a major flaw by allowing a dedicated seat to a specific race. So as the affirming team, we stand by the move and urge the adjudicator and the audience to agree with basic human equal rights. At the end of the day, we don't want to implement them. If we don't implement the route, we risk having a country where our children are raised by hypocrisies. How can a community as a whole trust the government to do what is right and what is best in our interest when there is a large possibility that underqualified politicians are making decisions for us?